All right, here's how old I'm getting. When I was a young reporter, they had only one housing number. Now I think we have like a dozen. One they closely follow of late is something called pending home sales. In other words, you've gone to contract on a home, it's ready to go, it's in the pipeline. And that rose, but it barely rose. And that's even with these obscenely low mortgage interest rates. And the problem could be, it could be at the lower level, at the entry level. Young people are saddled with simply too much debt to even consider buying a home. And could that be the big impediment going forward? We got real estate analyst Jason Meister, who says the student loan debt is indeed going to be a big factor on whether this housing recovery even happens, right?
That's right. The first-time home buyer, Neil, is under siege. You had an increased double digits in home prices, and interest rates are up from a year ago. Like you said, they're low. They're near 4%, but they're up from a year ago. So with the debt on the one hand and interest rates and home prices going up, they can't afford homes.
So, Tracy, I'll bring on my panelists here. That doesn't augur well for housing, because you and I can remember much higher rates. But the fact of the matter is that people got used to these very low rates. And if they go up even a little bit, that's a lot.
I think it's a lot like the tech bubble. Once the bubble burst, everyone got scared. No one's in the market. No one's in housing because the bubble sort of burst. Why do I want a home? Why do I want to be laden with this? I might as well rent. What if I lose my job? I have to move. I want a little flexibility. I think there's a lot of factors now in this whole. It's not like it was, you know, back in the day. The American dream was to own a home.
Yeah, you know, you had something interesting. I had some young people here these days, not so long ago, talking about the bloom off the housing rose. They just don't see it. And a lot of them have experienced firsthand, either from their parents, what a meltdown does, losing the house, not affording the house, you know, bank collectors chasing you. They're not as sanguine on the beauty of owning a home.
The American dream has been shattered, and we're trying to recover, but you're not going to have a real housing recovery without the first-time home buyer. And if they're 30-year-olds living in their parents' basements because the job market is lackluster.
Sometimes they can live in their attic, you know.
They may be, that's right. But if the job market is so bad, we really had a jobless recovery. And so if we're not really, a job market is not robust, and you have student debt on top of the fact that the job market is still a tough place out there, it's very hard for affordable to buy homes and to be able to afford these homes with these interest rates.
I heard another argument, Keith and Terrell, that we don't need the kids, we don't need the young people. There's enough activity on the upper end and people buying with cash and all that, that churning alone will be able to sustain the housing recovery. I'm no expert on this and certainly not nearly as smart as Jason, but I cannot imagine that is sustainable, but that's just me. What do you think?
Well, I think it comes down to access to capital, Neil, and right now you got to look at who's got it. The federal government's handing it out like candy. Wall Street's got tons of it. I know lots of private equity firms that are doing what private citizens are doing. They're buying lots of homes, hoping to sit on them and rent them because they're betting on a value increase somewhere down the road. I think he's onto something here with the student debt, but really you got to flip that argument around and say, why aren't banks lending? Banks aren't lending because there's too much money in the system to begin with.
I think they're lending. They're just back to lending what they did maybe before all this hullabaloo. In other words, you have to, Jonas, put down, you know, a certain amount. You have to qualify, no doc loans or no more. We're getting back to reason, and that takes time to get used to.
We can't use 2005 as the model of healthy home lending. That's really not a level we're going to get back to with the ninja loans and everything else that was going on. But I think Tracy was actually attacking the bigger point. Although, yeah, it's true that they have more student loan debt, and that's going to help you borrow, stop you from taking on more debt. The whole American dream has kind of changed with millennials. You know, we've hit peak car, too. They don't want to live out in the suburbs and have a picket fence and a car and a house. That dream, it doesn't exist for this generation. So all those things are lower. They're moving to cities at higher levels. And as far as without this buyer, is the home market never going to collapse? These people are not going to live in their basements till they're 80. So some hedge funds buying the property, and they're going to rent it out to that same millennial who would rather not be in the home ownership and rental business. They would rather just be a tenant, and that's that. And then they'll hopefully invest their money in the stock market, which has higher returns than real estate anyway over time.
Real quickly, that doesn't mean much for home values then.
No, I mean, home values are going to drop, and I think prices need to drop. I think that's healthy. I think that the double-digit increase...
But I thought they had dropped enough.
They haven't dropped enough.
And didn't we talk
even
here, Neil,
close,
that
Neil.
so many of those first-time homebuyers' homes are underwater still? So that's part of it, too, right? They can't even get out of the home to sell it and put it on the market.
That's right.
Mine is not like.
Well, don't forget the
Zelda
banks are
stuck
still
his drive
holding
through.
huge amounts of shadow inventory.
Well, bottom line is I don't like anything any of you are saying. All right.